Hi, it's me, Ingrid INFP, and welcome to my Poetry Corner crochet video where I discuss poetry and crochet. Um, this one is in honor of my English teacher from high school, Mrs Zanone, the best teacher, honestly. And she had a tattoo of the poem that we're going to discuss today. So it must mean a lot to her. So I hadn't actually read this before. I'd read it maybe, but I hadn't actually thought of it much until today. So this poem is called 13 Ways of Looking at a Blackbird. I can't crochet while I'm reading, unfortunately. By Wallace Stevens. And let's get into it. 13 Ways of Looking at a Blackbird. 1. Among 20 snowy mountains, the only moving thing was the eye of the blackbird. 2. I was of 3 minds, like a tree in which there are 3 blackbirds. 3. The blackbird whirled in autumn winds. It was a small part of the pantomime. 4. A man and a woman are one. A man and a woman and a blackbird are one. 5. I do not know which to prefer, the beauty of inflections or the beauty of innuendoes, the blackbird whistling or just after. 6. Icicles filled the long window with barbaric glass. The shadow of the blackbird crossed it to and fro. The mood traced in the shadow and indecipherable cause. 7. O thin men of Haddam, why do you imagine golden birds? Do you not see how the blackbird walks around the feet of the woman about you? 8. I know noble accents and lucid, inescapable rhythms, but I know too that the blackbird is involved in what I know. 9. When the blackbird flew out of sight, it marked the edge of one of many circles. 10. At the sight of the blackbirds flying in the green light, even the bawds of euphony would cry out sharply. 11. He rode over Connecticut on a glass coach. Once a fear pierced him, in that he mistook the shadow of his equipage for blackbirds. 12. The river is moving. The blackbird must be flying. 13. It was evening all afternoon. It was evening, and it was going to snow. The blackbird sat in the cedar limbs. Okay. So, first of all, the structure of the poem is kind of interesting because it has those 13 ways. It's split in 13 free flowing stanzas. I have to say that I understand the appeal of this poem. I like it. It really is kind of the way that you look at birds. I mean, I look at birds at least like that. In one of those 13 ways at least. I like watching birds. When I lived in the south of Sweden, I was really into, well, I was in a place where there was a lot of birds. There were a lot of birds, and they were omnipresent, and they were kind of like the tellers of time, because they would fly in the morning and they would fly in the evening the other way. And I kind of got annoyed at the birds because they were there and always making noise, and their feces were all over the place in that town. But I have to say that they kind of became my friends, you know. They're always there. they're kind of a constant in that town and in my life. And I found that this was pretty soothing for me, to kind of follow the rhythms of nature. This poem is also like a good winter poem. So many winter poems are about Christmas or about the snow, and so I find that this poem is different in that sense. I like that it's like the 13 ways, these snapshots of how a blackbird can be viewed, and it's like in some way it is kind of like how the human brain works, or the eye works, like a snapshot, like you're taking in all these things. But when there is only a blackbird and a tree to take in the landscape when it's winter, then there are all sorts of ways to interpret that, I guess. And so I guess that's why it's the 13 ways. I don't know why he chose the number 13, but it might be because it's an unlucky number. I don't know if blackbirds are considered lucky. At least I know that like ravens are like bringers of bad omens, and there is a reason why I call this channel Radish Raven, because I do like birds. Okay. I mean, not enough that I would get a tattoo of this poem on me, but then again, I'm not an English teacher, so I just find the poem hits a chord inside of me. I don't know what it is. I haven't thought about it enough. Let's look back at the poem. I like how there's like zooming in and out with like the eye of the blackbird, and then like zooming out towards a tree, and then talking about autumn winds. It made me think of like these videos where crows will play in the snow, like they'll roll around in the snow, and they're pretty smart creatures. They will just roll around in the snow for play, and not because like it's anything useful to them. So I think that these birds are pretty smart. I don't know about a blackbird specifically, but those birds are pretty smart. This poem also made me think of the concept of ma in Japanese culture, because I was thinking of I watched a documentary about Studio Ghibli and Spirited Away, where Chihiro looks outside the window in the train, and then she so she looks outside the window in the train, and then she doesn't do anything. It's just a pause. It's kind of a thing in art where the pause is just as important as the rest. It's just as important as the rest, because the absence of something is actually useful. It's like the concept of space in sculpture. The negative space is something that is often used in art, that can be pretty useful, and that can bring to light sometimes more than the matter itself. Sometimes it's what isn't there that makes the art beautiful. And that's kind of a little bit what winter is about. It's like it's an absence of warmth, but I think that that's kind of like what the blackbird symbolizes. Maybe the blackbird symbolizes art, or I don't know, in his case maybe it's poetry, but it's kind of like it is something, and at the same time it is nothing. And I'm not making any sense, but the poem isn't supposed to make sense, I don't think. I don't think so. It's kind of like blending time, and because it talks about how it is snowing and at the same time it's not snowing, and it's evening all afternoon. So like time is getting blurred here, and it's much more than just like the single moment that he talks about. This, the 13 different perspectives of the world are pretty universal, you know? It's like every time that you're looking at the blackbird, it's not just one time. And all of these 13 ways of looking at the blackbird can be true all at once, without meaning that like the blackbird doesn't exist or whatever. It can, it's like, you know, you have to be able to have many perspectives in your brain at the same time. At least if you're an intuitive person, like I guess that this poet is. So this poem is deceptively simple while also being extremely complicated. And I think that that's kind of the point. And the blackbird, I don't know what it's supposed to represent, but it's not. This is a very abstract poem, even when it's so minimalist, you could say. Okay, well, I'm going to just sit here and read a little bit the poem again to think if there's anything I've missed. I do think that blackbirds, like many other birds that are black in color and that are common, because I think that blackbirds are pretty common, are often overlooked. And I think that that is something that kind of plays into the poem. That it's like, this is nothing unusual or spectacular, but it is so important anyway. It kind of reminds me of a poem that some of you guys have written in the comments, The Red Wheelbarrow, by William Carlos Williams, where like the simple detail can make all the difference, you know? And it's, I can't say that I understand every single one of these 13 ways of looking at the blackbird, but they do hit me, all of them, in some way. So I want to thank my English teacher for, well, telling us what that this was a poem that she liked. I hope that she's doing well. I hope that you all are doing well. I'm going to keep doing my crochet and reading my books, because all these books are unread. I really wanted to read fiction now, but instead I'm reading all these non-fiction books at the same time. And so hi from Snufkin and from our squishy friend. And have a great November day. Bye.